Union President.
Acts as the main spokesperson for YUSU, chairs the Board of Trustees and is responsible for the reputation, leadership and direction of YUSU as a democratic organisation.
Hi guys.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
So, could I ask you both, let's start with Nayomi.
Okay.
Can I just ask you to maybe introduce yourself and maybe the one point you want to get across from your manifesto?
That's a bit hard. My name is Naomi. I'm a third year PPE student, so philosophy, politics and econ, and I really just want to help people. And I think the main point on my manifesto, I don't know, probably just accessibility. I just want to make a better uni experience for the new students, and I haven't seen amazing amount of change throughout my 3 years, and I just want people to be able to access a proper good student union life at York as they can in different universities.
Lovely.
I'm Chris Small, and I'm a small man with big ideas, and I hope to achieve for York the smallest plastic bottom lake in Europe. I think that's an achievable policy for a sensible York.
Lovely, thanks very much. So, as I was prepping for today's debate, it was quite difficult to come up with commonalities between your two manifestos, which I don't think will come as a surprise to anyone. But, so, I did manage to get some. So, both of you mentioned accessibility and transport on campus in very different ways, mind you. But I would ask you to expand on your manifesto points a little bit here. Can we start with Nayomi?
Okay, so accessibility, I'd talk about, most people think about physical accessibility when they think about university. I mean, accessibility is a really hot word, so I'm going to try and not repeat it a lot. But I think there needs to be more expansion in the definition of that, and think about things like gender inclusive language when addressing loads of students. I mean, I came into this university and at our freshers talk we were addressed as ladies and gentlemen, like it was 2016 back then, but it's 2019 and I think we should get with the times. And other things such as like mental health is a massive problem, and there was a recent study that showed that 1 in 4 students have mental health issues, and I think things like having quiet rooms around campus to accommodate for students who have anxiety will help with overall attendance in lectures, but also help people achieve their best grades, the best student campus life if they can be on campus and also take the time out from the hectic nature of it. So things like that.
So I talked more about transport issues, including the key policy of a travelator between Fairhurst and Morell, partly because it'd be a fun thing to have a referendum on which direction it will be. I think that would be a more fun referendum that will engage students, but also I pledged to support increasing bus prices because that happens under every union president, so I might as well put it in my manifesto.
Very honest take on a manifesto this year. So, now a question just for you, Chris. You've got a very interesting idea in your manifesto about divesting the university's oil shares. It's something that's been raised by our current Environment and Ethics Officer, Oscar Bentley. So, could you tell me a bit more about this policy? And does this mean you'd like to collaborate with part-time officers within YUSU?
If I could get the Environmental and Ethics Officer on board with building the Norweg and Hes East, I think I would totally be up for working with them, but I think there's a place for all part-time officers in that, because as I made this up on the spot in the debate on Friday, it's now a multi-use oil rig space. It's already being used for society space. If PTOs want to use the oil rig as well for something else, I can't imagine what, but we can make it up on the spot. That's what the rest of the campaign has been.
Sure, okay, no problem. And now just a question for you, Nayomi. In your manifesto, you advocate for a flat hierarchy and for some larger changes to the sabbatical positions. Can you tell me a bit about why these issues are important to you and what you hope to achieve with them?
So I think a big thing that no one's actually questioned me on, and I'm glad you have, is the fact that I don't think the role that I'm running for, union president, should exist. Like most student unions, if you look at it, have a flat hierarchy, and by which I mean they have loads of VPs for different things like community and wellbeing, but also things like equality and diversity and university development, things like that, which encompass a lot more students, and I think is a much more democratic way of thinking about university politics. And I think just the way that YUSU is constructed right now, and the reason why people think YUSU isn't really good, like other student unions, is the fact that we live in an antiquated system, in that it doesn't really reflect student unions of times now. And I think the sabbatical officer team right now don't represent as much of the student population as it can do. I think things like sports and activities, although really important roles, very like 4,000 students probably take part in, like few students take part in that, whereas like 60% of the student population are classified as women or different genders. And so I think having a full-time SAB women's officer, which is common in most student unions, is a better way of structuring our student union than the system that we have now.
Right, thank you very much. Okay, so now to both of you. If elected, what kind of leader would you be? Who are your role models? Who influenced you most when writing your manifestos? Let's start with you, Chris.
Okay, what kind of leader would I be? I think it would be a unique style of leadership, one that's never been seen before. I'm not sure quite in what way yet, because it would be making it up all on the spot, but I think that's the best style of leadership. But also, who inspires me? I think we've nicked several Ronald Reagan graphics in our campaign so far. Actually, my whole campaign has been quite presidential in style, which is quite fun for a parody campaign, I think.
Okay, thanks very much.
I think there's no like current leader or ruler of the world that represents the way that I want to run it. But I think the way that I would like to rule, as Chris might say, would be to be fair. And I think the manifestos that I have, like, the inspiration behind my manifestos have come from previous candidates who I've met and took the time to speak to a lot of different students and then gathered those ideas and made that manifesto. And I think that's what I've tried to do here. And I think this is going to sound bad, but a bit ruthless in the fact that something I've said is accountability. And I think what makes a good student union is to make sure that the staff and the members within it, well, aside from the students, are doing their best possible job. And if they're not, the thing that I said is that people who are currently working within YUSU either have to start pulling their socks up or they're going to have to put their shoes on and leave. Like, that's the kind of person I'll be. But fair, like, if you do a good job, you're going to get respected, and I think that should be recognised as well, which is something that is not done right now.
Very snappy, thank you. Okay, so URY collaborated with NOOS to send out surveys to our YUSU candidates this year. And Nayomi, you responded to the question, why are you running for the position, by saying you were sick of YUSU's lies. What did you mean by this?
So, I'm trying to think, because it was very last minute application. So, I think, sick and tired of these lies. That was a reference to, like, a meme. So I said sick and tired of the hurtful lies. So things that they promise and then they don't deliver on. Things like buses is a great one to talk about. Saying that it would be fairer, that buses prices would be cheaper, the routes won't change, but clearly that's not the thing. But it's just inconsistency within UC. There's large staff turnover, which is, we can't blame them, but there's got to be a reason why. Probably because they don't pay living wage, maybe. So I think just things like that, there's not enough transparency within the union. I only realised last year the union and the university were different. I think just having clearer transparency and owning up to mistakes when they do make mistakes. I think that's what I'm really meant by that.
Thanks
apart
very
from
much.
the meme. Yeah.
Okay, and to the same question, Chris, you answered quite cryptically and said you were running so that others didn't have to. What did you mean by that?
It's quite hard to explain that. But I also answered the questions quite last minute, and I think it's the point that I think I'm going to leave it as a cryptic thing for the audience to work out. So I can't explain it.
Leave the mystery. I like it. So if you had to sum up your campaign in one word, what would it be? Naomi.
Well, it stands for accessibility, health, and thing. But I think it's just be fair and be nice. Be nice, kids. That's really
And
it.
Chris.
It would be Chris, but if you gave me a second word, I would add small as well.
Thanks very much. Thanks, guys.
We're on Instagram too.
And they say radio isn't a visual medium.
Follow us at URY1350.
Okay, so I am now joined by Chris Oldnall and Connor Drake for the second presidential debate. So you guys just want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, sure. Go on, I'll go first. So, hi, I'm Chris, and I'm a second-year maths student and also a student ambassador, and I'm wanting to make a more Chris university. So that's coordinated, healthy, reachable, inclusive and secure.
Hi, I'm Connor Drake. I'm the current working class officer with YUSU. I'm a third-year social policy student, and I want to put students at the heart of everything that I do while being president.
Okay, so what made you want to go and run for to be the next YUSU president? Connor, we'll start with you.
So I think that there's been some really good work done by recent sabbatical officers, not just presidents but also other officers. Now, but I think that in recent years there's been a sort of sameness to a lot of the candidates, and I think that I've got something. I feel like I'm sort of much different to the presidents that have come before us. I mean, for one, I'm not an old Harrovian like Alex Urquhart, and it was lovely, but I just feel like to sum it up, I feel like I'm a refreshing take on what a president can be and what a president can do.
And Chris?
I guess there's kind of almost been a bit of a journey for why I wanted to run, kind of almost being a student who didn't engage in YUSU at all about a year ago now, until I ended up running in the by-election to be volunteering officer with my friend Morgan Steigman. And by being volunteering officer, I've seen so much that can happen in YUSU and how much students are really sort of disengaged, but also what the amazing things can be done and how it can be so amazing to bring people together on campus and create our own little community, whether that be with university staff, York students, YUSU staff and the wider York community. And I kind of, as president, feel like I could really bring all that together even more so than I have in the volunteering role.
Yeah, so you've mentioned a lot of issues there. What would you say is the most important issue facing the president at this moment? Chris, we'll start with you.
External companies, I would say, is the most challenging issue that's facing both the president and the rest of YUSU at the moment. We're in a state of almost, not crisis, I think that's perhaps a bit too dramatic, but of uncertainty when it comes to First Bus and Unity Health. They are two massive issues that James Durkan wanted to tackle in his manifesto, and we're getting to a really key pinnacle point where it isn't just the president that needs to take part in those issues now, it's every single sabbatical officer, and that's also been seen in Steph Hale's excellent Bustis work. And I think third parties are getting more and more grasp on the university, and it's UC's job to almost make sure that they don't take over the student experience but add to it.
And Connor?
Yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned Bustis. I think for me, it's the disconnect between students and the union and the university, and I think what the Bustis campaign has done is really highlight the way that the union and students can work together. But yeah, for me, hands down, if I was to pick one and only one, it would be the lack of communication and cohesion between students and the university.
So how would you solve that if you were elected as president?
So the policy that one of my policies that I'm leading on is fighting to organise University Question Time, which will be a termly event with members of senior management from both the university and the student union, where students are provided an opportunity to go out and say to be in a room with the Vice Chancellor or the Registrar and say, look, why aren't you doing that? You know, having direct communication with those people, because I think that it's what students long for and it's what the university is lacking experience of. So that's what I do to solve that issue.
And Chris, how would you solve the communication issue?
The communication issue, I think, I partially agree that there does need to be a greater face from the student body to university officials, but I do personally feel that that is the job of YUSU, that the Students' Union and the elected officials and the sabbatical officers are the people who should be tackling that, and that's why one of my key policies in my manifesto is this YUSU on the move sort of idea, and that's having the sabbatical officers all kind of popping up at one place on campus randomly every couple of weeks and collecting those student questions, collecting those engagement, because ultimately the sabbatical officers are the ones who sit on those committees with those officials and will have that contact a bit more regular than once a term. Not that I'm saying it's a great idea to have that face-to-face contact, but ultimately I feel like the transparency in that, getting that communication across would be done by collecting those questions and then taking them to those officials.
Okay, so another big issue facing all students, we see it cropping up a lot, is money issues. We're all stretched for money. How would you plan to tackle this and ease student money problems? Connor, we'll start with you.
So for me, I want to I want to sort of, again, coming back to empowering students. I want to give students the opportunity to tell the university and tell other students what their experience of their accommodation is like, as accommodation is probably the biggest cost that students have to dish out in their time at university, not only on campus but off campus. So I'm trying to think pretty much like the Busters campaign, going a bit old school and maybe sort of creating a place on like an online forum where people can say, look at these problems I've faced, and then off campus I'd want to try and work with other officers, because I know Steph's planning on trying to introduce a landlord rating scheme. They've done it in Leeds, they've done it in Cardiff. There's no reason why we can't do it in York. So I think that with accommodation, I think accommodation is one of the biggest issues in terms of money. I'd fight for sort of campaigns on housing.
I think money is definitely an interesting issue. It's something that every student will always face forever in eternity, I think. And it's one of those that ultimately some work has already been done, and there is a foundation to a certain extent. So obviously, I don't know if you saw the live debate that I referenced an equity of provision report, and that does talk about the costs that are hidden within academia. But I think we need to be looking into all those other, what I would call hidden costs. So to a certain extent, that is accommodation and sort of the fees that are associated with that. But then also other little things, because I always find myself that when I log onto my bank account, it's always the little things that have added up. And so looking at the cost of alcohol on campus, looking at how much does it cost a student to get home, and I don't mean buy a bus in York, I mean at Christmas, how much does it cost a student to get home? Looking at all those, and I'm not saying that in any sort of way that can be tackled within a year, but I want to create a report that does detail that, so that something can then be done in a very similar way that the equity of provision report is now being worked with, because we need to collect that data, and that does take time.
Yeah, so you also both set out in your manifestos the importance of inclusivity on campus. I know that last year I lived on West and work on East. There was massive disconnect for me between the two campuses. How would you go about solving this, and how would you achieve this? Connor, we'll start with you.
So as a part-time officer, I've already held an event on Hes East at the Piazza, and I'm going to be holding an event next Saturday at the Law and Management Building on Hes East. So I think it's just about sort of reaching out to people and letting them know, look, we care about you, we want you to be involved. I mean, I think a lot of these issues, the disconnect, that being the big one, I think that a lot of these issues can be solved by outreach, and just talking to people and just saying, look, we're here, we represent you, tell us what you think. You know, it's just about getting out there and speaking to people. That's what you've got to do.
Yeah, and Chris?
I wholly have to echo Connor on that one, that it is all about getting out there and speaking to people. I think the disconnect between the two campuses is an interesting issue, and it's something that I have sat and thought about for so long, because it's so interesting that most universities don't have that. Most universities do have separate bits of campus that are at least a 5-minute, 10-minute bus journey away. And so it does fascinate me how this kind of culture of Hes West and Hes East is sort of built on the University of York. And I think, as you said, Connor, it's partly about getting a YUSU presence over there, because that will help build that inclusivity. If a student who studies and lives on Heslington East can access a member of a YUSU sabbatical officer and be able to talk to them more freely without having to make that journey over to Heslington West, that will naturally increase inclusivity, especially when we have a lot of international students that are based over on Heslington East, that they might not feel comfortable having to travel over to this campus if they don't particularly, or it might not mean that they can get to the SABs easily. And I feel like that is one quite easy way to make a very minor start on inclusivity and building the campuses together.
Can I raise another point, please?
Of course.
So, I think there's a disconnect between the two campuses, but I think there's also a disconnect between people who live at the university and people who live in York, and people who commute to university. So I commute to university, I commute every day that I'm in. It's 40 miles, about an hour, and I find that I'm quite often I miss out on a lot of things because I'm at home a lot of the time, and it's a shame. I mean, I'm happy being at home, but not to make it all about me. But I think what I really do appreciate is the work that the mature students association do. I think it's the Michelle Student Association, or it might be people who work at student support, and they organise a coffee morning where you get a free coffee, you get like a voucher, and it's just a really good way of building a community. So I'd like to encourage the sort of SABs to go to those, and just encourage more of them to happen, because I think it's really good. More opportunities to include commuting students.
Just quickly, one word to sum up your campaign, Connor.
Refreshing.
Chris?
Chris.
Thank you so much, guys. Good luck with your campaigns, and election results night is in a week, so good luck until then. Thank you.
Cheers.
On air,
Online,
on tap, New York's official student radio station.
URY.
So, Anna and Samara, hello, good evening, finally. So there are quite a few candidates running for this role this year. What would you say makes you stand out against them? Samara, you go first.
I think that I've got quite a good track record, so I've kind of come from doing lots. Lots of people always tell me, oh, I don't know how you do it, because I like being busy. They always say I seem to be everywhere at once, but I always get the job done. And really, I just love doing it, and I've got quite a few good new ideas that I think will help really actually make a York for the students.
And Anna?
I mean, my manifesto point to kind of out there. Not many people have tapped onto these subjects. You know, no one else is thinking about the amount of ducks on campus, or, I mean, you know, FE's trying to improve transport system, but no one's considered a miniature railway so far. And a couple of candidates are talking about, you know, loosening censorship rules in student media, but as someone who's been very affected by that, I have a different perspective.
Certainly, and we're going to touch on that miniature railway that you're suggesting in just a moment. But first, YUSU over the last year has been the target of many controversial claims. I wonder, what do you think is the way to re-engage students with the student union? Anna, you go first.
I think a lot of the problems that, you know, the disenfranchised, is that a word? Something like that. Students are of YUSU, so they don't quite understand what YUSU can and can't achieve. A lot of the problems that students blame YUSU for are actually things to do with the university. So things sort of like storage space, you know, YUSU the SABs campaigned for that, you know, they big Christmas card, and that's now in the university's hands, stuff like that. So I think just being very more clear about what YUSU actually does and what can be achieved by them, and what the university is responsible for.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Anna on that. It's all about communication and understanding, because lots of students don't actually understand what the student union can do and can't do, and what each individual is able to push. And actually that lots of times stuff doesn't happen overnight. We can't just say, oh, this is a great idea, let's do it. There's so many things you have to do and whole loops you have to jump through. You can't just click your fingers and it's there. It's a lot of hard work. So it is that understanding of what can be done and how long it takes. But also there needs to be communication on telling students what's happening, so they actually know and they don't complain, because they know, oh, okay, someone's trying. Maybe it's not there yet, but someone is actually trying.
And on that point, you both mentioned in your manifestos that you want to make YUSU transparent, and you recognise that as an issue at the moment. What do you think you would be able to do in the position of president to make YUSU transparent?
So building on the previous point about the communication understanding, it's trying to get the information out there. Yeah, there won't be every student that actually reads that information, but if it's out there, they can if they really want to find out. But also for me, transparency is within the campus bars and where the money goes. I've spoken to people at the bars and they're really willing to try and actually help students understand what the costs are, so that students can go, do we want to actually be putting the money into that or this event, and kind of shape the bars in university how they want it to be shaped.
Okay. And Anna?
Yeah, I'd agree with that, to be honest. It's about sort of just making everything more open. There's a lot of sort of hidden costs and things and stuff that's all kind of, you know, rumours about stuff, and I don't understand why there's so much sort of things that are hidden. You know, I just want to see everything more transparent, kind of, if students ask, why is this much? How come this process takes this long? I'd want you to be more open about, you know, the policies behind that.
Okay, so currently all the sabbatical officers do post every week what they've been doing, what they've been up to, and the progression that they've made in that. So what do you make of the current president's, James Durkan's, policy on transparency. Do you think he's been good at that, or do you think there are ways that you would improve that particular aspect?
So I think those updates are really good, and I sort of see them most weeks, and they're really helpful to see kind of the points that are hit. But there needs to be more opportunity to actually go and talk to them about what they're doing. So we need to bring back those drop-in sessions, because I said in the debate, it's great being able to kind of make a comment online, but actually you get so much more out of just sitting down and having a conversation, because you don't always understand how stuff comes across online. In emails, you can't actually fully understand the situation without talking about it. So they're taking a lot of steps towards it, but it's one of those things that actually we're not there yet. We're getting there, and they're trying, but there's still a way to go. It needs to be more than just those posts. There needs to be kind of the information forced upon students. And I know students aren't always great at taking it. I've got friends that don't know things just because they haven't had the chance to read it because they're so busy doing other stuff, but we need to kind of try and push it a little bit more.
Okay, and Anna?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, the current, what Durkin's doing is pretty good, the weekly updates, but something I'd like to see returned is, I really enjoyed if you remember, Alex Urquhart's Pool in a Pint, I think it's called. That was great, because he sort of, he did it with, just, I don't like to use this word, but like sort of normal students, and also sort of like people in societies, people on college committees, and then, they'd have a good conversation with them over casual activity, and then, because it's such like a fun, not a formal chat, that's how a lot of the conversation got conveyed, and they'd report it back to their committee, their society. So I think more activities like that would be something, if I was pres, I would want to do.
Okay, and both of you have touched on timings as well, and how students don't always understand how long it takes to achieve certain things. Do you think 1 year in this position is enough time to make tangible change to the university?
I'd say not necessarily, no. A lot of the problem with presidency is it is only 1 year, and you can always build upon other previous presidents, attempts at doing stuff, but obviously every president will have a sort of a different manifesto, different agenda, and want to push different things. And there's no way about it, to be honest. Like, it is a year for a reason. People don't really, very rarely does an officer rerun and win for, a reason. So yeah, I guess it is just a case of if an issue is that important, then other officers will touch on it and try and campaign for it. But no, a year probably isn't long enough.
Yeah, I agree. A year is a really short space of time, because I did a year on the Alcuin committee as president, and you can only do so much. But I think it's a kind of a testament to the fact when you do as much as you can in that year and kind of set up things for other people to start. And if you can get something really good going, and you just push for that, and sort of in a handover, if you can say, look, these things really need to be done, if you can start the work. I know within sports there's things they started 2 years ago with Laura that started that are still going on now, and they're actually pushing and they're finally coming to light. So whilst it's 1 year, yes, you can't do it all, there's lots of things that actually, a different approach is sometimes a good thing. Someone takes something and just builds upon it in a slightly different way, it can be good.
Okay, and I know both of you in your manifestos touch on certain changes to the university, such as a miniature train system and the YUSU shop. So do you reckon things like that would be possible? Do you think you'd have that role in the business management of the university to be able to make those changes? Or do you think perhaps that's the job of someone slightly higher up in the university system? Do you think they'll be achievable?
I think personally the UC shop, an online shop, would be achievable. There was talk about actually doing something like that. I've spoken to the college presidents and chairs at the moment, and they'd all be on board for that, for adding college merch into that, because it's hard work being a college merchandise officer, trying to coordinate things. We've had alumni students contact and say, oh, is there any way I can get merchandise sent to me here? I know a college, I think, got contacted about someone in Australia, and it's quite difficult for a student to get that. But actually an online shop, okay, they might have to pay a lot of postage, but that would give an option. And there was talk about it, so it would be something. And if we can bring in the university and the colleges, whilst one on its own might not be able to turn a profit, everyone together, that's 9 different colleges and the university. It's a lot of possibility and opportunity.
Isn't there currently an online shop at the moment?
There's not really a public one. There's not one that includes the colleges, and there's not It's not like the old YUSU shop.
Okay, there is the one upstairs in Market Square that also sells university merchandise. Have you been there?
Yeah, I've been up there because I was looking for something back in my first year. I think I was looking for a different type of trackies, but it would just be great to have a shop like the one we used to have, because it was the people there, the way you could use yo-yo points, something like that. I know lots of students really enjoyed.
Okay, and Anna, on your train line.
Yeah, I mean, the train is something that would be very ambitious. It would take, a lot of years of planning, and, the council would probably be involved and stuff. But I think generally for trying to get, presidential things passed through, it is very much, a lot of it is down to university. Not so much just for signing reforms and stuff, but it is about funding. And I think that the university should give a lot more money to the YUSU. And not even that, but YUSU should be more open about how little they actually receive.
Okay, and very quickly, from each of you, why should people be voting for you in the elections?
I've got a lot of passion, dedication, and I really, really do care about students.
Because I'm all right.
Radio by students,
For students.
you are why.